Scott says it's no big deal. He's goofing around. We're live. It is no big deal. And we're going to talk about a couple of things, I guess, today. I'm going to try to talk. We'll see how that goes.
Sorry, I'm scrambling around like a madman.
That's all right. I've given the heads up on Twitter
Oh,
that
good.
we're working out tonight, doing stuff. So
Yeah.
talking. So you did the title, comics are for chumps, and I said, okay, with protest, I'll go ahead and post that. I'm kidding.
With protest.
I agree. I agree. It is pretty much for chumps, and
Well, this was
you ought to go into it knowing it's not going to make you any money.
Oh yeah, this was inspired by your post on Tumblr yesterday, saying that you drew a Captain America, and you said this has convinced me that I never want to work in mainstream comics.
Beyond that, I'm not even going to. I'm going to finish DL and Odious, but after that, I'm probably will never gear up toward ever doing any sort of comics again. It is too much work, and the only kind of storyteller I want to be with visuals is probably just a painter. I probably want to move totally into painting as a guy doing stuff
I don't.
as my art exercise.
I I feel that that's probably a reasonable thing to, because you're right. That I mean,
Well, it's just too hard. I mean, I can't.
but
I can't. There's a plasma.
yeah, I saw.
Yeah,
Uh, I
Grahovic.
that
Grahovic.
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm going to say you can't make any money doing comics, and there are hundreds of people that make a lot of money doing it. Maybe not hundreds, but there.
Well, I mean, a lot of it is multidisciplined on making a lot of money. It is people
Yeah.
making a lot of money. Well, I say that, and maybe there are people making a lot of money that are specialized, but I doubt it. I think it's mostly about being able to get a few things done other than just comics.
Well,
Yeah.
I think you got to break. I think you got to break it down into a couple things, because I think that first off, let's throw out everybody that's doing a comics gate style, whether they're comics gate or not, that model of a Kickstarter. But
Yeah.
throw that all out, because I don't see you doing that.
Yeah. No, no, no. I'd never do a Kickstarter and
About
go
that.
through all that
So
pressure and all that.
eliminate probably some of the more successful people doing creator-owned comics.
Right.
Okay? And let's eliminate anybody doing Marvel or DC, because I don't know about DC, but Marvel doesn't pay very much. And did you ever see this? My guy fighting the line.
Oh, let's see that. Wow, look at that. That's pretty good. Did you use any source material for that?
I
Is
used
it?
a picture of a lion's head, so I could, and I couldn't remember how many. I was trying to figure out the paws, so I used paws,
Uh huh.
pictures of paws. But that's about it. I was
Yeah.
trying.
Well, no, no, no. Any sort of reference search always helps on that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, and you know what? I drew this while I was waiting to go. I started it at the house, but I finished the. I mean, when I say started, I mean it's very rough, and I finished it waiting for physical therapy. So the bulk, other than the layout, other than probably about.
Let me make that the only screen here. Let me so I
Oh,
can have it so we can all have a look at that. Let's see. Yeah, I always I'm such an idiot. I always have to figure it out first.
well, you
Okay, there I am. The
e-
big screen. Let's try
everything.
it with you.
Figure out.
Let's see. Yeah, boy.
I just wanted kind of a cool. So
There it is. Solo layout. There it is. Yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
it was about at this level. I mean, it wasn't this obviously, but it was this level of done when I went to physical therapy and waited.
Uh
I did
huh.
physical therapy because I didn't know what traffic was going to be like, so I'd go kind of early
Uh
and
huh.
draw, take my sketchbook pen and draw. and invariably people would just be like, "I can't believe you're drawing," or something like that. But anyway, yeah, I did, and 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 the girl that was my physical therapist, she always kind of would come and talk to me, and she never really looked at my art, which was fine. We weren't there to show art off, but she kind of did a double take when she saw this one. You know,
Yeah, yeah. It looks like somebody that has
draw
done a little bit of drawing in their life. Yeah.
the well, you know, it's funny. She told me that she was frustrated because she wasn't an artist, and apparently everyone in her family draws
Hmm.
except for her, and they're all decent except for her. But
Well, that's something I think we all have in us, and I really enjoyed the all the reinforcement I got out of that book, The War of Art.
oh yeah,
It's in us all. We have to have the creation. We have to have a muse going on to where we get in touch with something. I mean, it can go out and be banging wood together, doing this or that. It can be anything. I guess you could probably, be Lebowski and get it out of bowling. I mean, it's
yeah.
you
Oh
just need it. You need to feel like
yeah.
somehow you.
I don't completely agree with that.
What? No, you don't need to be creative as a human being.
Yeah, no, no, no. Not everybody.
Not everybody, huh? That's
No,
interesting.
I don't think. But I
I think when women do stuff, activities. Well, I'm being an old timer here, but about getting together with groups and stuff like that, and bake sales and that sort of stuff. That's creativity. I
oh
mean,
well, okay, okay. Then you're
you can be condescending
okay.
about the activity involved, not condescending, but at least just not sensitive to the fact that for certain people, I mean, you're being very creative
Yeah, I
doing.
I kind of bristle at the term creative because
Okay.
because it's kind of a catch-all that people use to indicate just anything that they consider like out of the norm, and I don't really consider myself like I don't consider like drawing like a creative activity. I don't know. A creative has been you can use it for anything. People who make a pizza is a creative, and I mean you can't really argue with it. I'm not saying it's not, but it's not really art as such, or it's not.
Uh-huh. Well,
I mean,
no, it's not art,
I
maybe, but it is something
I mean
that is just required of somebody that I think everybody's got something in them that they need to uh, find a little channel for that they know that that's something they'd like to be doing.
well, how I tell people about myself is I'm the kind of person that needs to be making something.
Yeah,
And so that and I wouldn't call that necessarily creative, even though it
I
is.
would.
Well, but okay, but I don't. I'm not one of these guys.
I mean,
I know
as
people that are like comics are for everybody. Everybody should make comics, and I'm like, well, I don't. Why? Why does
no,
everybody?
yeah,
You know,
no, no, no. That's true. I mean, you see stuff
well,
where you would want you think you'd be doing somebody a favor to discourage them from
exactly. We just talked about
working in comics, but
it.
you'd be wrong probably. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like if you're getting something out of it, all of a sudden you may be the guy. I I laugh at Scott Adams. He also disavows the idea of being an artist. He wants to be among the ranks of. I don't know. I think someone gave him some bad notions about art, and he's developed his own. I mean, he's very creative about how bad artists are. He looks for the people that disagree with him, and he finds most often they are artists. So he thinks he's a little bit above his
But
own creative drives. But
uh, I,
what? Go ahead.
well, I just think that I don't know. I'm it's when you take it's not this. it's a skill. It's a craft that you work at. It's not a hey, come to we're going to go to your library and we're going to teach all the kids how to make comic books.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean that you can do that, but that's more like an activity. That's not
yeah.
real. I
And a
mean,
scam.
if you're charging admission, it could be a scam.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
sell a book about making comics, you
Yeah.
know. And
Oh yeah.
I see people doing that, and it's like, well, and it's like we were talking about, about making comics as for Chump. And don't get me wrong, my comic book is coming out. I mean, this
Yeah.
is not, but I just think that if you decide that you want to, I just think that the idea of making comics uh, and saying, well, I'm going to do this and make a lot of money. I
Oh
think
man,
you
you
got
are going to be
to
disappointed.
now. Someone will argue and say, well, you're just trying to pop the little kids' balloons or whatever. But
Yeah.
I mean, I just think, I mean, Marvel. I mean, like, when I was a kid, I wanted to work at Marvel. I mean, even as an adult, I mean, and I mean, if I had the opportunity, I'd probably do it. But I know that I would make less money than I'm making at my current job, and I don't make a lot of money at my current job, but it would still be less, and it would be much less secure, no benefits, no, you got to pay tax. I mean, if you look at what they pay and you figure out like the tax angle and all this stuff, you're lucky if you're making $25,000 a year to start out with. Now
Yeah.
there are people that make more than that, but
Mm.
I mean, literally, like starting rate for a penciler at Marvel Comics is $150 a page, which sounds like a lot if you're doing
Fast if you're really quick.
well. But I mean, they demand art that can't be done at a quick rate. It
Hmm.
has to be more polished than it was in the past. And I just think that I think people should go into something like if that's what you aspire to, which is great. And don't get me wrong, I would love to, if Marvel sees my comic and calls me up and says, "Hey, we want you to work for us." I would do it in a heartbeat, Ellis. But
Sure.
I don't think I would quit my day job and do it because I know I just the flaky nature of the industry, the the fact that if they're paying you $150 a page and not paying unemployment tax, which they're not, you immediately go into like a 40% tax bracket. So
Yeah.
immediately that amount becomes let's see, half would be $75, so it's maybe 80, $90 a page, and they can reject it for any reason. You don't
That'd be
you
rough.
you
That'd be
you
rough, man. That could that would be
oh, they don't.
incredible to have something that you spent just 2 months worth of work on or something. Hopefully, they all have fairly considerate kill fees if they're going to do that to you. Whew, that could
Fees.
be bad.
Marvel as far, I mean, they may for some people, but I mean,
Hmm.
but I mean, and again, I'm not picking on Marvel. I don't know. I actually don't know the page rate for DC, but I'm sure their starting rate is similar. But it's just there's no benefits. There's you're working, no sick pay, no you know.
Yeah, no, no, you'd have
So
to be a dummy to
well,
really pursue the
yeah,
idea. Well, I say that, or I say a dummy, or somebody that was young, too young to realize just how they're being taken if they
if
do
you're
land in the
a
midst of something like that.
if you're a student and you're working a part time job delivering pizzas or something, then you're like, hey, I'm rolling in the
Yeah,
dough.
yeah. All of a sudden you are doing something that, and it might lead you somewhere.
Yeah, that's
It might be a network you get from working with other guys that are being exploited. That you turn into. You get a couple of notions about where you ought to be, and that's all life is bouncing off bad experience to making lemonade out of lemons. But if you're young enough and you're ready to do a couple of bounces, you know.
yeah. I just think that and I with the industry apparently contracting.
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh
think
yeah.
that
Oh yeah.
it's
It's definitely
worse,
contracting.
gonna get worse before it gets better. That's the other
Yeah.
thing, you know.
Oh my goodness, is it ever contracting, huh? Man,
Yeah.
think about it. Think about what it used to be. And you know, it's gone through bad moments before, but it's you know, I mean,
At
it's
some
its
point,
history is you know, bad
oh, it's
times
the
really.
history of from one disaster to another.
Yeah.
At some point, it's. I mean, the way that the sales are as directed as like towards comic shops, you know, selling in comic shops, not having a newsstand presence. The at some point, if they keep hemorrhaging comic stores, at some point there's not going to be enough comic stores to sustain the industry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it just there's a minimum. It's like this. I asked this question one time on a. I used to be part of a group it was a paid school that was filled with comic pros, and with the idea was you would learn to make comics,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked the question I asked that nobody had the answer to. I said, "What's the at like a Marvel or DC? What is the minimum that minimum volume that a comic can sell and make its money?" And my thought was, well, if an artist makes X amount a page and a writer makes X amount, which I knew all the art stuff. I didn't know what a writer made, but it's like, well, what can they sell? You know, at some point, your cost is X amount per book based on
Yeah, sure.
page
You're
rate.
searching for the bottom line. What is it?
I would look for the bottom line, and you should be if you knew the page rates, you could find it fairly easily.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just be well. It's
Because that is always your most expensive thing. You know, all these people that always inadvertently rip each other off. They go in with good intentions, but
yeah,
they end up, you know, having to say, "Oops, I can
yeah.
either eat or pay that guy what I owe him." No,
I
I think
didn't
I'd rather eat.
I didn't calculate I had to pay the artist. You
Yeah, yeah,
know, the
yeah,
inker or the
yeah,
it's just a lot
yeah.
of work. I mean, says the guy that spent forever doing a 4 issue miniseries.
Sure. And you know, it's you know, you could be hurt, but it's you
Oh,
know, it's
I
you know it.
and I
You know it going in that you might be
oh
hurt.
and I'll do another one when
Yep.
when once give me a couple months to kind of recover.
Recover.
Well,
Lick your
and
wounds, as they say.
the big problem now is there's no comic comic conventions to sell the stuff at,
Yeah, yeah,
and so
yeah.
the idea that we were going to come out with this big splash and and start selling our book at show at a show, announce it at a show and start selling it. Well, that's kind of gone out the window because there's no
Hmm.
shows.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't know.
and think about the huge swath of people that are hurt by that no
Oh my
show
god!
kind of
Yeah,
thing.
I've got a day job. All these people don't have day jobs.
Yeah.
You know. Uh,
Well, that's the thing. The fire consumes, and then out of it, maybe something will arise. You never know. I mean, obviously the only working models will arise from it, and everybody will copy it, I guess. Now,
well,
does regular product put out by Marvel and DC, is that bought by the comic stores on the no return basis, or can they get rid of it? Can they offload some of that stuff that
no.
doesn't sell? No.
Occasionally they'll release something that is returnable, but for the most part, anything sold to a comic shop is not returnable. That's the thing.
Wow,
They good
it's
discount.
rough. Oh man, well that's another reason that they are definitely going to disappear because you can't live with that kind of business model. They need to have to beg,
Uh,
borrow something for going back to the old model, I guess.
well, but that's comic shops have always existed under this model because
Yeah,
before
I
that,
know, but well, yeah, the only thing that calls itself a comic shop, I guess, has always been a no return kind of thing.
yeah, for the most part, other than I think in the early 60s and early 70s, before the direct market was introduced, there were like, bookstores that would sell comics, or antique store,
Or
that.
any drugstore would not let itself be
Well,
caught
well,
with a bill for comics that didn't sell. Those,
that they were returnable on the newsstand.
that is something that I wonder if it existed. Did shops? Uh, well, yeah, it did exist. There was people trying to sell comics with their covers ripped off, weren't there?
Sure, I have a handful of comics in my collection that I bought as a kid at the drugstore
Uh
that
huh.
did comics, so they got them somewhere else that had the covers ripped off.
They just sent the covers back in for credit, huh? They didn't send the tonnage
Somebody,
of the comics. They sent the covers in. Now
right?
that's almost asking you to rip them off, isn't it? In a way,
Well,
it's like
that's how the magazine industry works.
hmm,
And this is, no one wants a 2-month old issue of
yeah,
architectural
yeah,
whatever, live
without a cover, without the
without
cover of
a
the
cover.
movie star on it.
Right, but comics, they could sell them without a cover because kids would buy them and they'd sell them for,
Yeah,
instead of being a buck, instead of being a dime, they'd be what.
yeah, yeah. Give me a buck
But
for this
I bought.
comic.
In fact, my first issue I ever bought of X-Men was X-Men 119 without a cover.
That's
In
kind of
fact,
cool.
at a convention, if you wanted to ask CB Cebulski a question on his panel, you had to tell what your first comic you bought was.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
In 119, and I said I bought it at a drugstore. I said, but they were, and he was like, oh, okay, cool. And he was, and I said, yeah, but it didn't have a cover on it. And he goes,
Uh,
which, because at that point he knew it had been stolen, basically. Uh,
stolen.
well,
Just
yeah, stolen, because
as
yeah, because
in
the store didn't.
exploited anyway. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the store got credit for returning it, and they ended up selling it. So, yeah, I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, your topic of so you're in the middle of Lord of the Rings again, huh?
yes, I'm going to read Lord of the. Do you have a copy of it? Do you want to read it?
I do not have a copy of it, but of course I'm a library away from getting a copy of it.
I
I have a
may.
hold right now at the library that I'll be picking up another P.G. Woodhouse called P. Smith and Mike, or Mike and P. Smith.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's fun. Uh, I may have. I need to look. I have a copy. Now, did you didn't see my post? You didn't see my post. I'll show you. You didn't see my post on social media about it, did you?
No, I guess not, probably.
Okay, so this is the one I'm reading right now.
Let's see what the cover design looks like.
This is
Oh,
the
that's I think that's the cover design I'm familiar with, or
yeah.
most familiar
Okay,
with.
here's what I
Let's
wanted to
see.
show you though. So I pulled this off the shelf. Now I've read it. This will be the fourth time I've read the trilogy.
Wow.
Uh, I read this when I was a kid. This exact copy when I was a kid,
Uh-huh.
and I've read it twice since then in another version that I bought when the first movie came out. Hang on just a second. I'll grab it. It's right over here on the shelf.
Okay. Well, I mean, it really catches you up, but
So
I'm not. Yeah.
this is the current one
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
this is the one I've read it in the last two times. But I didn't want to read it because it's so thick. I was
Yeah, it
like,
is
well,
thick.
I got the little books. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I may have two copies of this because when this came out at the store, I bought myself a copy and Michelle a copy, thinking we'd read it together, and she never read her copy. So if I have another one, if I have two of these, I'll give you one, and you can read if you want to read it.
Sure.
Okay,
Uh,
I'll find it. I don't know, but I think I know. I think it's in my. I think the other one's in the nightstand.
okay.
Anyway, so I pulled this out last night, I'm kind of flipping through it, and I find
Now,
this.
that big thick thing,
Yeah,
that was just the one book, right? Or is it all three of them?
the trilogy.
Oh, it's the whole trilogy in that one
Yeah,
book?
yeah.
Oh, okay, okay, I got you.
So if I gave that to you, then you could read the whole thing.
I'd have it covered. Okay, got you.
That's covered. So I
Hmm.
found this. I don't know if you can see what this is. Let me make
Mexico City,
This is a
Dallas,
boarding.
Fort Worth.
From when I was a kid in July 27th, 1983. I went to Mexico City. I would have been 15, and this was stuck in the book. Not here. This is where I'm. But so apparently, I took this book on my trip to Mexico, and I
That's
was
what you were reading.
almost all the way through it. And yeah, and I found that. I thought that was pretty cool because I was like, oh yeah, and I was in the no smoking section.
That's right. You could smoke. I smoked on a airplane probably about three times. No, I did. I at least twice, I think.
But anyway, I thought that was cool that I found that. But I am reading Lord of the Rings. It will screw up the podcast because I want to talk. I haven't done it because last time I did it was 3 or 4 years ago, and it completely screwed up my reading for the podcast.
Oh,
But
yeah, yeah, because you'll get caught up in it, and it's the only thing you got time to read. You know, it's
that
a lot. It's a
to
lot of
read.
reading.
But you know what? I'm just going to do it, and we'll see what happens.
Hmm. Well,
So yeah, if you
I'm. Have you ever heard of the book Gates of Fire?
yeah, I've got that.
Oh, you do. Have you read it? It's by
No,
the
I haven't.
Pressman, the guy that did.
100. It's about the by
Yeah,
Pressman. Yeah, I picked that up years ago at a bookstore. I just saw it. It looked interesting. I picked it up. I've read part of it, and when I read that Art of War book, I realized it was the same. It was the same author.
hmm.
Are you getting it from the
Well,
library?
uh, no, I bought it. I actually bought a paperback because I had a feeling I was going to like it. And sure enough, I do. Like I said on Twitter, it's I'm reading the manliest manly book ever written.
That's
So,
that's why I want to read. That's why I want to read Lord of the Rings. Actually, what happened is on Facebook, it came up with a quote. Let me see if I can find. Let me look at my Facebook page. See if I can find it. Ellis left the air conditioner on outside. Yeah, no kidding, Ellis. Turn it off.
oh
Uh,
yeah, Natasha, I guess, is local to our area, so she knows what's happening. Yeah, this weather's been a lot of fun to wake up and watch it snow all day long, and then melt all the next day.
I have to go out in it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, you got to go out in it. I
Yeah.
at least have the option to dodge that stuff.
Well, it's okay. I don't mind at all freezing my tail off. Uh,
That's what they pay you the big bucks for.
yeah. In fact, this is how foolish I am. I volunteered. I'm using that loosely to lock up the building that I'm in uh, the week between Christmas and New Year. So that means not only do I have to be there every day, that means I can't leave early. I'll be the last one to leave. Well, I can't find it, but there was a quote that I put on Facebook, and it was basically something that Aragorn had said about just like fighting and it just struck me as like a very macho kind of thing,
Oh
and
yeah.
and up in my Facebook memory from when I read it, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, and I thought, man, I'm gonna read that again. So
Oh, we dig that kind of stuff, and it's all about, of course, uh, Tolkien was very religious and everything, so it's all going to be about the uh, the great process of self-sacrifice going on at so many levels by everybody.
yes,
That kind of character you're just drawn to. Of That's why this city Gates of Fire is so appealing. Is these guys are all so macho, and it's all about the the group's effort, and they're
Yeah,
ready to die for
it's not really not
as
necessarily
as free men versus
right.
the attack by the Persians.
Food to the Persians, yeah.
Yeah,
And it's not when I think it's a little misleading to say, well, this is macho or manly or whatever, but there is certain I think there is a gender tendency that way, but I
yeah,
think it's this idea of not being caged up. It's more
yeah.
of like a freedom idea. Now, typically, this is kind of a macho idea, but it's more a muscular. I always think of it as muscular, just a very have you seen Ford versus Ferrari?
No, I haven't yet.
Oh,
Even
you
though
need to get that.
I think I've got it on. It is on Prime, right?
No,
Oh, it's not.
nope, nope.
Huh?
Library, get a copy.
Library.
It's the same kind of thing, and it's not like, oh, they're driving cars, so it has to be a guy thing, but it's a competitive kind of thing. It's a very I'm going to win or die kind of thing. In that
Uh huh.
you're um you know
Well,
you won't find that kind of story in Game of Thrones. I haven't read Game of Thrones. I've seen one or two of the seasons, and I really didn't care for it because it's just there's no good versus evil. It's just everybody's just evil, and
yeah,
you know
yeah. They are
there's
a little too gray. All of them are a little gray.
there's no. That's the thing about Lord of the Rings. It's just, we got to go, and it's this cause. That's what it is. It's same thing for Ford versus Ferrari. It's just like Ferrari spit in Ford's eye, and Ford is out to redeem themselves, and Carroll Shelby is redeeming himself, and the driver's trying to redeem. It's just this redemption through a virtual, almost if necessary, self-sacrifice to
Hmm.
whatever it takes to redeem themselves. And I don't know. So I'm reading Lord of the Rings, and ironically, in that same, did we talk about
In
airplane
that
models
vein,
in the same
airplane
vein?
models. Yeah, you've gone that route. You want to accomplish something with your time
Yes. My
exile at home.
well, I'm not really exiled at home, but my wife is, and she's been doing
Hmm.
puzzles, and she kind of ran out of them, and I thought, well, we ought to build a model plane instead of build because to me, then you have something, when you're
Hmm.
done. And I've been watching these YouTube. First off, I want to build like a World War II plane, so I bought a P-51 Mustang model, and I've
Yeah.
been watching YouTube videos about these guys that build these model planes, and they go in and they put like wiring in they build little wiring harnesses, and I'm like, man, this is right up my alley because like I said
So they
earlier,
can light it. So they can light it from inside,
I
or
don't know, so
what?
it's like so it looks real.
Okay.
It's not an actual wiring harness. It's a wiring harness to portray the illusion that it's a real. I mean, these guys are building like museum quality models. Mine won't look that good, but I'm going to make it as feminists complained about Ford versus Ferrari. I think my wife thought it was pretty cool. She enjoyed it, but my wife is a engineer, so I don't know. I don't know where she is in that thing. And she likes cars, and she likes airplanes. But
Yeah, I was. Yeah, go ahead.
people complain that there wasn't enough. Well, there wasn't. There wasn't. It was a historical thing. You know, I mean,
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. That
yeah,
makes me laugh. But when people complain, and it's like, well, I'm sorry he lived and he didn't do this or that. It's like,
yeah. Like,
get
well,
over it. It's like, sorry, this is
it would be like
he
complaining.
wasn't built that way. He didn't do things the way you wanted him to do it. That's
That would be like complaining that, well, it's racist against Italians because the Italians lost the race, and it's like, well, wait
yeah,
a minute, that's what happened. You
yeah,
know,
exactly.
um,
It's like the stretch on the what is admittedly a very good show, The Queen's Gambit. We had a discussion on it where we talked about the fact that no female at that in that era
that did that.
had won chess like that.
It was a fake story. It was a story, which is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, sure. It was
and,
an
and
alternate universe story.
yeah, but don't try and you know cling to it as like, well, this is
Yeah.
some kind of fact
Well,
type.
it's like how people, I can't get over this because I thought it was just another superhero movie, and I was kind of over superhero movies by the time I saw it. But the Black Panther is like how many people were almost acting like, ah, yes, this is how
Yeah, this is
it
this
was like it was being treated almost like a reality. And it's like,
yeah.
bad news. That's not Africa.
Wakanda is not a real African country.
Yeah,
You know, um, you know,
yeah. But
which
you
is a
shouldn't, but that's the deal. You
they were
shouldn't have to tell
right.
anybody that.
Do what?
I say you shouldn't have to tell anybody that. There ought to be a base level of things you
Geography.
you get to argue about.
No, there's not a forget about. There's not a country anywhere where they have flying cars. You know,
Yeah,
routinely.
yeah.
You know, uh, but anyway, so yeah, I'm gonna build this model. I don't know. I'll when we get done, I'll bring it and show it on a live stream. I think
Yeah, the Mustang, I guess that's the Baba Black Sheep.
nope.
Nope,
Corsair.
it's not, is it? Okay. Corsair,
You're not
okay.
a you're not a plane guy, are you?
I guess not. Well, I say that, and I worked for Top Gun. I had to draw a lot of. I even drew the early MiG that was
Oh,
kind of top secret at that time, based on just.
not, you're
Uh,
not a. Are you a historical guy? You don't. Do you read history?
well, I'm reading Gates of Fire.
Okay, I'll give you that then.
Well, I'm trying to think of other historical books I've read, but no, I read The Right Stuff. I
Oh, there
love
you go.
that. Yeah, that's aviation. It's
Sure.
got a lot of history to it, and of course those guys, all the astronauts were, that was the conflict. They were wanted to be Chuck Yeager,
Right,
and when
Chuck
they were,
Yeager.
and they didn't want to be spamming the can, which
Right,
is
and yeah, but they weren't allowed to because they weren't allowed to. Yeah,
yeah.
public
There's a book that's probably worth a reread. The Right Stuff. Boy, I enjoyed that when I read it.
that around here somewhere. I have a lot of books. Yeah, but Ellis, you should watch Ford versus. I think you'd like it.
Oh, I'm sure I would. Yeah, anytime something is getting talked up by everybody, you're going to like it.
Especially if the feminists hate it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, we're gonna get the protest on. Um. Anyway, so yeah, so I've been kind of Michelle. We can't start the model yet because Michelle is working on stuff, and so I sent out Christmas cards.
I got
And
mine. Thank you.
oh,
Appreciate
you
it.
did? Oh,
Yeah, I
okay,
got
good,
mine.
good. Um, and so I'm done with that. That was one project. That was a I sent a lot out. That was a project. Uh, the uh, but now I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm gonna do next because I'm kind of waiting. The writer is supposed to come up with something for us to work on in January, and so I'm doodling in my sketchbook. I'm thinking about trying to start a new sketchbook on January 1, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm adrift if I don't have a project. I'm not a
I
good.
uh, I finished off reading. You talk about things historical. I read all of this Adam Strange showcase,
Oh
which
yeah.
is cool. It starts off with Sikowski art, which I also read a lot of art. Justice League of America was done by Sikowski. He did most of the Wonder Woman, but he's not the artist you associate with Adam Strange. That goes to Carmine Infantino,
Oh
and
yeah.
and the study in it, and Carmine Infantino even kind of evolves to the most brilliant style. If you're going to be a comic book artist that needs to get it done when you sit down and not just do just a ton of stuff, not have to solve super complex problems, you're going to come up with something like Carmine Infantino came up with, where he's got a great recurring layout of silhouettes and placement. And it probably his most brilliant thing is his low angle shot, which gives you that kind of impressive and awesomeness to your figures. But it also, if your eye level is right at the the sole of someone's foot, all that radiating perspective goes away. All of a sudden, all you're drawing is what to a painter would be atmospheric perspective. You're just now he may have run his radiating lines out a little bit here and there, but for the most part, if his eyeball was good enough, he could just draw things receding in space where he felt like placing them. He reminds me, in fact, a lot of Magnola that way. He's got what could be called a very 2D approach, and especially for his cityscapes, he just sticks those up in the back, and they're always really nice looking landscapes.
I think
But
he
he's
was.
but he's got a real good thing figured out for minimalism.
I think I have a book on Carmen Infantino. Of course, that's been my theme today. I have a book on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I have a book on Carmen Infantino called. I think it's called The Amazing World of Carmen Infantino, and I bought it at Disney World of all places. But it the
I'm
the
sorry. I laugh because I just got the notification. My this content is going on. Go ahead.
oh okay the anyway it I think he was I think Infantino was involved in architecture. Maybe he wanted to be an architect at
Yeah,
one
yeah,
point,
yeah. I
and
could see that.
because the book made a big deal about his cityscapes, his
Uh huh.
futurist cityscapes that he does in a lot of these. He's kind of got a style that he does for it. Sorry, I just saw the.
His
Uh,
figures are reduced to cool minimalist kind of notions. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Sorry, that quote made me laugh. I hadn't seen Fort Worth Story, but I bought Heavy Metal the movie the other day. Too much acid done to make that movie.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
that heavy metal's got the the den. John
yeah,
Candy is den. You know,
yeah,
and being naked, the first thing he does is, I better clothe myself.
yeah.
Yeah, which is,
The yeah, I like that movie. The Bernie Wrightson thing's pretty good.
oh, and
With
speaking of heavy metal and den,
yeah,
I'm the guy that was late to the part getting the news that Richard Corbin died just about a week or so ago, maybe even
yeah.
2 weeks. But
I
Richard
had
Corbin is one of my all-time favorite artists. I just loved what he did, and I loved my discovery of him because at the time he was coming out in underground comics I was finding, and I just loved his stuff. And he was so obviously heads and above, and to discover his age, which
oh
I
yeah.
guess was what 80, I guess.
Was he older than you thought?
Yeah, I guess he was like he born 1940, which would make him
Yeah, 80.
60, 80. Yeah, 80. So when you discover that, you go, huh, no wonder he had a couple of things under his belt by the time he started doing those underground comics. And of course, he did a lot of artwork for a kind of a cool, it sounded like a great stable job for an artist. It's some sort of, I think they did like industrial animation, so he's getting that under his belt of understanding a little bit about animation and stuff. You know, he had
Yeah.
a cool.
We about him on the last Better Than Fiction, or a recent one. I don't know if it's the last one we recorded.
Well, what did you have to say about him on the
Well,
talk?
well, Dave talked about him mostly, but I had mentioned Dave had forgotten or failed to mention that he had done some work for Marvel. He did a Luke Cage series in the
Mm-hmm.
in I think it was in the late '90s for Marvel. It's called Cage. It's written by Brian Azzarello, and it was a interesting take on Luke Cage. Um,
He was always going to do something just really interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
his a boy and his dog. You know,
yeah.
that book you've got. That God, I can't believe I sold mine. Blood Star.
Oh yeah.
Love that story.
Howard Robert is a Robert D. Howard adaptation, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah,
Valley of the Worm, I believe, is the story.
yeah, yeah. I've got a couple, and I got two of his art books. He put out some art books that I got. That's mostly like airbrush stuff. I have a book. I'll show you this book.
Rusty Deo says, "Hi, chumps."
Hey, how's it going, fellow chumps?
Natasha International says Corbin's style looks like a laid back Frazetta. He could look very laid back, especially when he was in the undergrounds and doing all of his own hatching to do all his halftones.
Yeah.
But I love that. I felt like I was going to school looking like at everything he was doing with the Zipatone back then. It was just all so cool.
So I have this book, How to Draw Art for Comic Books, and it's basically interviews. It's got like Dick Sprang, and they're oddball people. It's got Dick Sprang, Joe Kubert, Harvey Kurtzman, and Richard Corbin.
I'll be.
So it's got a chapter on
Wow.
Richard Corbin, and it's got some some of the black and white stuff, and it talks about how he works and one of the one of the things we talked about was his coloring. He always
Oh,
had kind of an
man.
odd color, and the reason why is because early on when he was self-publishing some of this stuff, he wanted to do it in color. That was Gil Kane chapter.
Hmm.
He wanted to do it in color, but he didn't have the money to pay a separator to separate it. So he would do it, and he basically manually separated it. He would airbrush. I think he airbrushed on the cyan, magenta, and yellow on film, and he would do that. And how him doing that, it came out with this weird color palette that kind
Well,
of became
yeah,
staple for
yeah.
him.
His ability to separate that kind of stuff in his head was just amazing, and I saw it up close because you guys go to that con that's up there in that vicinity all the time. And I
Yeah.
just called him. I gave Richard Corbin a cold call back in, it would have been probably between 75 and 80, back
Oh,
during that era. And I called him and he said, sure, if you want to come up, I'll show you around. He didn't say it with that kind of enthusiasm. He's much more laid back, but he had no objection to somebody dropping in, coming over his threshold and having a look at what he's doing. He could tell I was very enthusiastic about seeing what he was doing. And so me and a guy named Mike Wheeler went up there in I forget what kind of car it was. It was a great little Dodge car. And sure enough, there it was. There was Den being ready to be sent to Metal Hurlant yes, all pinned up on the wall so he could look how his story was flowing and going. And it was all done as in his painterly stuff before separation. and he showed us his little on its nose camera that he used to do his negatives with. It just I just am so thankful I had that little experience. It was so fun.
I wish you'd been on our last episode of the show.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you think about some things about like that was just so cool of him to let me walk around and Phoebe out as a fan. And
Yeah, that,
he explained it. And of course, I had an appreciation. I shot negatives back in the back of our little place in our own little Lacy Lucy.
oh
Of
yeah, or we had a camera we called the Mickey Mouse. I don't know why,
huh,
but it was a you're talking about a line camera, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we had one of those.
And I mean, that kind of thing. It's like you have an instant appreciation for what he's up to, and how impossible it was. You just
Oh
you
gosh, yes.
the average person just can't even wrap their head around what that guy. It's like the Queen's Gambit or something in terms of like the moves he was having to be ahead of to to pull off what he was
Oh,
doing in
oh,
color.
yeah. When I talked about that on the podcast, the other two guys not being artists, I don't think they appreciated how
Yeah, yeah,
difficult that. I mean, this is not something. I mean, you pay hundreds of dollars per page to get that stuff separated. So
yeah,
if a guy or girl that could figure that out in their head and get something that was not just
yeah.
hideous looking was way ahead of the game.
Oh yeah, and plus he's doing stuff that he's doing color holds. All of this stuff you
Yeah.
don't think twice about by doing it in Photoshop these
Oh,
days.
yeah.
It's just so
Well,
easy now compared to what he
even
was up to.
now, some of that stuff is. I mean, we're so spoiled. What's funny is
Oh
we're
yeah,
spoiled, but yet by the technology, but yet the stuff doesn't look near as interesting. you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
it's just
yeah,
like,
and plus he kept his line art was kept very nice and sharp, as sharp as he had so many ideas that were floating around in his head for how to do things.
yeah. Which reminds me, my comic is at the colorist now.
Oh, really? Oh man, that'll be something to see. Do they give you the proofs or send you any?
I don't know what's going to happen, but I sent, or I put in a Dropbox the art. So so the question that I had that no one could really answer is, does she need the pages with or without the lettering? And no one could answer. And I said, well, I'm going to send it without the lettering, even though it means I'll have to put it back in. I mean, I've got the file; it's just a Photoshop file. But if I send her the pages with the lettering and she colors them, and there's a problem, it's going to cause more problems trying to patch that coloring file. You
Hmm.
know, whereas if I'm just dropping the lettering right on top of it in Photoshop, that's no big deal. I mean, it's a little bit of work, but it's not much, just cutting and pasting. But if there's a problem, do what?
Oh, I was well, yeah, yeah. You're anticipating your pipeline issues, yeah.
Yeah, just how which one? Well, okay, this is how I think at work. This is why. By the way, last week I won the quality award at my work, but this is why, because it's like, okay, how can this get screwed up, and which screw up would I rather deal with? You
Yeah.
know, and I would rather put the letters after she's done. I would rather have to open her Photoshop file, put the
Hmm.
letter on it, and then go from there. Or send the lettering to the gnomes at the publisher and let them do it. Then come up with some kind of, hey, we have the opportunity to do it in Portugal, but we can't. We're having trouble because the lettering won't fit in the existing word balloon. Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying? To me,
Uh-huh.
if
Oh,
we
you.
the
Oh,
colored art without
you're
the
having to worry about getting it localized in terms of like
well,
you're
no,
going to several markets.
no, no. I'm just saying, if there's a problem with the lettering and I've had her color the lettered art, I won't be able to fix it as easily.
Yeah.
It cuts down on whatever, there may be some weird reason that we want to change something in the text,
Mm-hmm.
and if it's not if it's got the coloring, it's all one and the same. If the black file, if the black layer has the lettering in it on top of the art, then
Mm-hmm.
it won't be any colors under the letters probably. And so if I remove a letterbox, then I'll have to patch the coloring somehow, which
Hmm.
might be impossible if she.
Oh, yeah, that could be a very annoying task. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I would much rather have to come back later, come back after she's done, and drop the word balloons on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just speaking of Corbin again, I was looking at an old strip he did called Kittens for Christian, which was like I say, an old favorite. But I was looking at his word balloon work and how he did the lettering, and it was like, did he turn that over to somebody? Because it had the weirdest choices. He had balloons that got extremely crowded, fitting it all in, and this is before Photoshop or anything, to where you're worried about, using a computer to do the lettering. And so whoever chose to letter it said, "Oh, I got this nice line ruled. I'm going to see how much of it I can get on the line." And you just
Yeah,
have all this white space that if the guy had designed a little better, it would have been a much better word balloon fill. And it was it looked kind of weird nowadays. But yeah, look for that. Anybody that stumbles on this, look for Kittens for Christian. I found several complete copies of it that were pretty good scans. It's on Pinterest. It's on Tumblr. Pretty good. And I learned how to pronounce a guy's name. I always wondered how to pronounce it. It's spelled Strnad. So take
Gents,
that on.
Benrad, or however you say how do you say his name?
It's pronounced Sternad.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That
You
sounds
just add an I, say stir. So that was cool to discover, because their collaborations were always some of my favorites. They did something called Fever Dreams and Kittens for Christian and a couple others.
gotcha.
Oops,
I can't believe
don't
you
want
just
that.
called him up. Was he in Missouri? He was in Kansas City, Missouri, wasn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
Huh. So what was his house like?
He lived in. It was my first experience ever walking into a place that was basically a condo. He had
Oh,
a split level condo. I think it probably may have been as many 3 stories high. He had what amounted to. We came in on his garage level, and I think above us was probably another couple of stories, and it was cool.
you say a condo? Are you
Yeah,
talking about like a house, like a split level house, or was it like an
yeah.
apartment?
It was well. It's where you share walls with a neighbor. Is what I'm talking about. So it's not a standalone house all to yourself.
Gotcha.
It's got a wall. It's just like living in an apartment, pretty much, but nice apartments.
Yeah. Okay. I asked Michelle and I had that discussion the other day because you don't hear condos around here too much, or at least I don't. You know.
Well, yeah, yeah. It's not some downtown. I mean, that's a choice, a lifestyle choice. A lot of people are living in condos.
Yeah, but I don't hear about them referred to. That's not a word that you hear around here a lot.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean I don't. Like I said, maybe it's just in my circles or whatever. But
Yeah, people that live in houses and apartments. Yeah.
yeah, that's. But anyway,
No, I mean, you got to. It's almost a California thing to live in a condo, because it's you're paying a down payment on something you allegedly own, and It's an apartment. It's not even a house.
But you do own it, right?
Yeah, yeah. You are
Okay, so it's not in an apartment.
right.
Okay, yeah, that was kind of what Michelle and I came up with. Michelle's friend in New York, she has a condo in New Jersey that she'll go to, and hers is kind of like that. But I think hers is more like what I would think of as like a traditional apartment, maybe.
Hmm.
You know,
Well, I mean, if she doesn't own it, and it's, I
does
mean, there's no difference between a condo and an apartment other than the ability to claim some sort of ownership and to
yeah,
maybe get some equity out of the thing.
yeah, and
I've lived in a couple of condos that
her
I
apartment in Manhattan is a co-op, which is the whole. You don't own your apartment; you own shares in the building or something. That she's trying to explain it to me.
yeah.
A little bit different. Anyway, well, dude, we've been at it for an hour, I think.
You're ready to quit. Okay.
But yeah, I've been tired all day. I don't know what the deal is.
I've
But
been drawing takes on like Adam Strange here. I'm going to be doing some painting that looks a little bit like Adam Strange. Oh, I wanted to show you one other thing. I walked
good.
around today with this thing. Uh, See this little thing? It looks like a USB stick.
Oh, you. Hang on just a second. Let me adjust. Oh, hang on.
I'll make me big.
Okay, I'm looking at my phone. Oh, what is
Solo
that?
layout. See, it's a
Is that a recorder?
yeah, it's a voice recorder. It's pretty groovy. Of course, nowadays you don't think anything about just using your phone or whatever to record, but this is like I stuck it in my shirt pocket, and it just has great sound. Even though it's through even a couple of layers of clothing, so
Oh
I
yeah,
could walk around and
and
do
trap people.
story ideas. Yeah, yeah, and be annoying. Yeah, and
Hey,
it's called the
handy for HR meetings.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Oh, well,
if you mention you saw it here, you won't get any money off, and in fact, you might be charged extra. So
probably.
so don't mention
Especially
you saw it here.
and trap people.
Yeah, handy for HR meetings. That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that idea.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
Okay, well, I guess we can call it a wrap. 1 hour, 2 minutes. That sounds plenty good. Hey, everybody, thanks for coming by. Sorry if we didn't pay attention to you much.
No doubt.
And look at that. I even missed a compliment. That looks pretty cool, Ellis. The
Yeah.
artwork. Okay, well, folks, we are ending another broadcast day. See you later. You want to say anything, Scott?
No, thanks for joining us. Check out my website, scottsackett.org.
Right. All right.
And join my YouTube if you haven't
Yeah.
already.
Go to his YouTube.
I'm going to